So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover a particular day's current affairs in a short span of time, around 20 minutes. Now, the purpose of this lecture series is very simple. We want you to cover your current affairs on a daily basis because current affairs form a very important portion of your civil services examination. In fact, 40 to 50% of your UPSC prelims as well as mains examination is directly or indirectly related to current affairs. So you cannot choose to ignore current affairs. And you should make covering current affairs a daily habit of yours. Therefore, you need to cover current affairs on a daily basis. But the problem is that you can't spend your entire day reading the newspaper or you can't spend your entire day covering current affairs. That's just not possible because you need time for other aspects of your UPSC syllabus as well. All right. So for your facility to facilitate you guys, we have shortlisted the important news items from today's newspaper. These news items are important from the perspective of featuring in civil services examination. So the shortlisting part is done by us. All you have to do is just spend 20 to 25 minutes with me on this lecture and then another 20 to 25 minutes revising this lecture. And how can you revise this lecture? By revising it from our PDF file. So the PDF file shall be shared on our Telegram channel. Okay. The link to our Telegram channel is given in the comment section below. All you have to do is click on that link. It will take you to our Telegram channel. From there, you can download the PDF of this lecture. Okay. So 20 minutes of watching, 25 minutes of revising, and in about 40 to 50 minutes, you would be done for the day as far as current affairs are concerned. Okay. Now you can spend your entire day covering other parts of your syllabus. Okay. So follow this lecture series regularly. Make it a daily habit of yours. All right. So let's start the discussion starting with what were the important topics. So let's take a look at the important topics that we shall cover in this particular lecture. Number one is Supreme Court upholds UP Madarsa Act. Okay. As you all know, madrasas are for religious education to Muslims. Okay. They are made for religious education to Muslim children. So UP government actually passed a act regulating madrasa education. So Allahabad High Court basically quashed that act. Supreme Court upheld that act. So what is this debate all about? We'll talk about this. Why? Because this debate also pushes the question of secularism in our country. Okay, so we'll talk about this issue. Then recently, Supreme Court made a historic judgment regarding right to property or property issues. How can state acquire property for public purposes, whether they can do that or not? Okay, and it was a landmark judgment. It was a 9-judge bench, and the Supreme Court actually gave the verdict through 8-1 majority. Okay, so we'll talk about this issue. Then we'll talk about dedicated freight corridors. These are very important for our transport industry, especially transport of goods. It is very important for India's economy as well. So what are these dedicated freight corridors? We'll talk about this. And in the end, Ministry of Tourism. In the end, we'll talk about Ministry of Tourism's Chalo India campaign that it has launched in UK. The aim of this campaign is to boost foreign tourism in India. Okay. So these are the 4 topics that we'll focus our attention on. So let's start the discussion, starting with topic number 1, which is Supreme Court upholds UP Madarsa Act. So what was in the news? So basically a 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court upheld the constitutional validity of Uttar Pradesh Board of Madarsa Education Act 2004. What happened was that in 2024, okay, which is this year, in March, April of this year, Allahabad High Court actually declared this law, which was passed in 2004, as null and void. Okay, it quashed this law. So basically, an appeal was filed in the Supreme Court against the judgment of Allahabad High Court, and Supreme Court has given the judgment in favor of this law and against Allahabad High Court's judgment. Allahabad High Court had earlier struck down the act, but the Supreme Court has reinstated the act and upheld its constitutional validity. Basically, Allahabad High Court had said that this law, the UP Madarsa Act, this law actually violated our constitution, and that is why it should be declared null and void. But Supreme Court says that that is not the case. Okay. Now, what is this act all about? Okay. So UP Madarsa Act. So basically, madrasas are for religious education for Muslims. Okay. So generally, traditionally, Muslims have been taught in madrasas, and this practice has been going on. Okay, so all types of education is given in these madrasas, religious as well as secular subjects also, like physics, chemistry, maths. Okay, now the UP government wanted to create a legal framework so that the degrees given in these madrasas are recognized everywhere. So in 2004, they enacted this act, okay, which provided a legal framework for madrasa education. And in these madrasas, curriculum of the NCRT would also be taught, and religious education, which is the purpose of madrasas, would also be imparted. In fact, this law created Uttar Pradesh Board of Madrasa Education. Now, it had many board members, and the main function of these board members was to prepare and prescribe course material and conduct exams for all courses. Now, all courses means, you see, these madrasas basically provide education which is equivalent to 10th, 12th, and they even provide degrees as well. Okay, so to give legal recognition to these degrees, you have to create a system, a legal system. Okay, if you want these degrees to be legally recognized. Okay, for that, this board was created, which would prepare and prescribe course material and conduct all exams for all levels. Okay, but the fact is that this law was challenged in Allahabad High Court. Okay, and the challenge was that this law is against Article 14 of the Constitution, which is right to equality. It is against Article 15 of the Constitution, which is right against discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, religion, and all that. Okay, it is also basically right to equality. And Article 21A, which is right to education. Okay, to kids between the age group of 6 to 14. Free and compulsory education to kids between the age group of 6 to 14. Okay, so this is Article 21A. So the challenge was that this law is against all these three articles, and that is why Allahabad High Court also found that yes, this law is violative of these provisions of the Constitution, therefore, this law should be quashed or declared void in its entirety. In fact, UP government was saying that you shouldn't delete the entire act. What you can do is delete the controversial provisions of this act, but you should allow this act to function. Remove the controversial provisions if they are violative of the Constitution, but do not delete the act in its entirety. But Allahabad High Court thought otherwise. They deleted or declared this act void, violative of the Constitution, and quashed this act. Okay. Now, this was done by Allahabad High Court in April 2024. March, April 2024, and therefore an appeal against this decision of Allahabad High Court was filed in the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court actually validated this act. They said that the Allahabad High Court gave a wrong judgment, basically, erred in its judgment. Now, what was Allahabad High Court's opinion? Basically, why did Allahabad High Court quash this act or remove this act? Okay, how did Allahabad High Court came to this conclusion that this act is violative of the Constitution? So what was the High Court's opinion? So on 22nd March, bench of justices Subhash Vidyarthi and Vivek Chaudhary at Allahabad High Court struck down the act in its entirety. This is important. Okay, deeming it unconstitutional on three main grounds. Ground number one was secularism. Okay, the government has to remain equidistant. Okay, the government has to remain equidistant from all religions. The government has a duty to provide secular education and cannot discriminate by providing education based on religion, because in these madrasas, religious education is also provided, right? And now with the constitution of a board and a law, government is giving legal recognition to these madrasas. So though legal recognition has been given to these madrasas, but now government has constituted a board which would regulate that. So in all probability or in all fairness, government is kind of providing religious education to religious education through these madrasas to people, which is not part of secularism. So on the grounds of secularism, this act gets violated. Okay, right? Because now government is involved and government is associated with madrasas, so government cannot provide religious education which would be provided in these madrasas. So government cannot be involved in this. Then it is violative of Right to Education Act, because Right to Education Act that from the age of 6 to 14, free and compulsory quality education should be given to all citizens. Okay, but people have argued that these madrasas do not provide quality education in secular subjects. They provide quality education in religious subjects, but not quality education in secular subjects. So in a way, government is discriminating against these Muslim kids who are studying in these madrasas. Their government is not ensuring quality secular education or quality education to these kids. So in a sense, government is violating Article 21A. Okay. Plus, as you know, this Madarsa Act was UP Madarsa Act. So it was passed by UP State Assembly. So it is a state law. And state law generally should not be against central law. But this UP Madarsa Act was in conflict with a central law. And what was that central law? University Grants Commission Act 1956. Under Section 3 of this Act, okay, it is said that degrees can only be awarded by universities or deemed universities, okay, not any other institution. But UP Madarsa Act allows for degrees being awarded by madrasas also. So this is in conflict with a central law, okay, which is another problem. So Allahabad High Court basically quashed this law on the basis of these three provisions. But the Supreme Court has said that this law does not violate secularism because religious instruction is different from religious education. Government is not giving any religious instruction. Government is allowing religious education to be imparted. So it is not violative of secularism. It is not violative of right to education if through these madrasas quality education is provided to these people. Okay. Plus, as far as conflict with central law is concerned, there are provisions in our constitution which allow for state law to prevail even if it is in conflict with central law. Okay, it needs president's assent. It can have governor's assent. Governor would pass on this law to president, and if president signs on it, then the state law will prevail over central law. So there are other remedies for that. The High Court cannot quash it. So by neglect, by actually conflicting with the judgments given by Allahabad High Court, the Supreme Court has said that we uphold the constitutional validity of this Madarsa Act. All right, that's all. Now let's shift to another topic which is also related to Supreme Court. Okay, a 9-judge bench. That's a big bench. Okay, 9-judge constitutional bench. So a constitutional bench on Supreme Court is constituted when questions regarding constitution are debated. Okay, or to be decided. A 9-judge constitution bench of the Supreme Court has ruled on a matter concerning private property that was pending in courts for over 3 decades. So this case was in the Supreme Court for 3 decades. Now this matter was concerning Article 39B and Article 31C of the Constitution. So what was the issue? Basically, to understand, you need to know what Article 39B and 31C say. So let's talk about these provisions. Okay. As you all know, if you have covered polity, that there is a separate chapter in our constitution which relates to directive principle of state policy, just after fundamental rights. So after the chapter on fundamental rights, the next chapter is DPSPs. Now, these DPSPs, these provisions of the constitution are not legally binding on the government. Okay, but these are just directions given to the government so that they fulfill the aspirations of our citizens. Okay, but these are not legally binding. Okay, now under Article 39 Clause B, which is a DPSP, it is said that the state direct its policy towards securing that the ownership and control of material resources of the community are so distributed as best to subserve the common good. So government should make sure that the money in our country is so distributed that it prevents inequality. Okay, it basically promotes common good of everyone, common good of all citizens. Wealth shouldn't be concentrated in few hands. Okay, now if you read this article along with Article 31C, which is a fundamental right, so Article 31C says that any law which aims to implement Article 39B and C cannot be challenged in courts on the grounds that it violates fundamental rights. So if government is trying to implement these two DPSPs, then that action of the government cannot be challenged in any court that it violates some fundamental rights. It has blanket immunity. Okay. Now this Article 31C was inserted through 25th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1971. Now what did this 31C did was that whenever government had to confiscate or acquire the property of many people or big estates, if government wanted to acquire the property, okay, it would bring out a law, okay, and prove that this law of acquiring private property of many people is for common good, okay, is for common good of all. Okay, if government proves that, then that means that action of the government is for implementing Article 39B, and it would have immunity from being declared violative of fundamental rights. Okay, that was the issue. Now, what has the court said? First of all, the 25th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1971 was challenged in Supreme Court in 1973 in the famous Keshav Nanda Bharti case. In that, the Supreme Court actually said that challenge to the courts can still be made because judicial review is basic structure of the Constitution, and you cannot completely remove judicial review. Okay, so this amendment was challenged. Some provisions of this amendment were removed. Then, in the recent judgment, the Supreme Court has said that not all private property can be deemed material resource of the community for redistribution. So Article 39B says that property can be taken for common good. But they say, Supreme Court has said that not all private property can be taken. The court would take a call. Okay, the court will decide which private property can be taken for common good and which cannot. Okay, so you cannot say that under Article 31C we have blanket immunity. No, court will decide whether this law qualifies as that private property which can be taken for common good or not. So court's role has gotten enhanced. Government does not have blanket immunity under Article 31C. All right. Okay. Now let's move on to third topic, which is dedicated freight corridors. Okay. Now what are dedicated freight corridors? Basically, trains are of two types: passenger trains and freight trains. Passenger trains are used to carry passengers, freight trains are used to carry goods. Now, these freight trains are very important for, for India's economy, basically, right? But the problem that Indian Railways has been suffering is that we have same tracks for both passenger and freight trains, okay? And sometimes the traffic of passenger trains is so much that freight trains do not get enough space to travel. This leads to delays in transportation of goods. Delays plus cost also. And this is very bad for trade. And India's economy has lost because of this. Okay. So that is why government has created dedicated freight corridors. These are those railway tracks on which only freight trains will run, so that it doesn't face any competition with passenger trains. And passenger trains run smoothly, freight trains run smoothly. These delays would get cut, cost would get cut. Okay. Now government is constructing two big freight corridors. One is Western dedicated freight corridor, which is from Delhi to Mumbai, and Eastern dedicated freight corridor from Delhi to Kolkata. All right. Now, a recent study by University of New South Wales, which is in Australia, has said that dedicated freight corridors are improving India's GDP and adding significantly to Indian Railways revenue. In fact, these dedicated freight corridors have reduced delays and cost, and because of that, the cost of commodities have come down by 0.5%. Because earlier, when these goods would get transported, it would lead to delays and increase in cost. Increase in transportation cost adds to the final price of these goods, right? But now, because of these dedicated freight corridors, the transportation cost has reduced, and because of that, prices of these commodities has come down. Plus, it has also increased the revenue of Indian Railways by 2.94% between 2018-19 and 22-23. Okay, so these dedicated freight corridors are a boon for India, Indian Railways especially, for economy and the revenue of Indian Railways. Now, what are dedicated freight corridors? I've explained to you: special routes for freight transportation. It offers higher transport capacity due to faster transit of freight trains. Earlier, freight trains had to stop at different railway stations because a passenger train is passing by. But now they can go non-stop at higher speeds, okay, and would reduce the delay in transportation of goods, including costs. This improves the supply chain for industries, logistics players located at economic centers along the way, leading to growth of import-export traffic too. Because from Delhi, these goods would be taken to Mumbai, from where they could be exported. Okay, so it improves India's import-export as well. All right. Now, why did we need DFCs? I've told you. The thing is, the biggest project of Indian government was Golden Quadrilateral, which actually linked through railway tracks four metropolitan cities of India: Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Howrah. Okay, so Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Howrah, or Kolkata. Quadrilateral. So this was called Golden Quadrilateral with two diagonals also, Delhi to Chennai and Mumbai to Howrah. Okay. The thing is that this stretch is only 16% of total tracks of Indian Railways, but it carries more than 2% of passenger traffic and 58% of freight traffic. All right. Now, this freight traffic was competing with passenger traffic. That is why government was constructing a parallel freight corridor or a parallel track for goods trains only. Okay. Also, because of so much delays, people who wanted to get goods transported, they were opting for trucks instead of trains. So they were opting for road transport instead of trains. And that is why railways share in total freight traffic was dipping, which impacted their revenue also. Okay. So that with dedicated freight corridors, now they would increase their share in total freight traffic. They would take back their share snatched away by trucks and roads. It would improve their revenue. It would also improve railway safety because now the tracks won't be overburdened with passenger and goods train. Okay, so there are many benefits. And last topic is Chalo India campaign in UK. So what is this? Ministry of Tourism will launch its Chalo India campaign on the sidelines of ongoing World Travel Mart in London. So there is this event being organized, a 3-day event from November 6 to November 8. This event is called World Travel Mart. It basically is a world tourism event. Okay, so world tourism event, all the tourism industries, all the government officials who want to promote tourism, and many stakeholders of the tourism industry would come together at this World Travel Mart. Ministry of Tourism is also participating in this, and Ministry of Tourism wants to increase foreign tourists in India. For that, they have launched Chalo India campaign. The campaign aims to bring more foreign tourists. And why did Ministry of Tourism choose World Travel Mart in London for Chalo India campaign? Well, because UK is the third largest source market for inbound tourists to India. Plus, it also has one of the biggest Indian diaspora also. Now, the reason why Ministry of Tourism is focusing so much on foreign tourists is because foreign tourism took a severe hit during the pandemic, and even after the ending of pandemic, the numbers haven't reached, the foreign tourist arrivals haven't reached the pre-pandemic levels. In 2023, 9.5 million foreign tourists arrived, but the number was 10.393 million pre-pandemic days. Okay, so we need to come back to pre-pandemic days, and we need to make India an attractive destination. For that, Ministry of Tourism has been launching these things. Okay, now what is this scheme, Chalo India scheme? So under this scheme, each overseas citizen of India, okay, person of Indian origin who is a citizen of another country. So a person might be a UK citizen, but he is an he is a person of Indian origin, an Indian becoming a UK citizen. Okay, he is given a card called OCI card, Overseas Citizen of India. So if anyone is an overseas citizen of India, okay, they can nominate 5 of their foreign friends on a special portal of Ministry of Tourism to be given visa without fees, free visas. So each OCI card holder, Indian living abroad, can nominate 5 of their foreign friends for free visa. Okay. So through that, if they will be given free visa, well, they would be more encouraged to visit India, and through that, we'll encourage foreign tourism, foreign tourist arrival in India. Now, as per government data, there are 5 million OCI card holders. So if each and every one of these OCI card holders nominate 5 people, then government would have to issue 25 million free visas. So the government has put an upper limit to free visas under this scheme. The upper limit is 1 lakh. While yes, every OCI card holder can nominate 5 foreign nationals, but the upper limit of total number of free visas issued under this scheme would be 1 lakh. So this is the scheme. You should know something about World Tourism or World Travel Mart also. So it is being organized from November 4 to November 7 at the Excel London. The Ministry of Tourism will participate along with a delegation of 50 stakeholders. It includes state governments, tour operators, airlines, hoteliers. In this event, India will have a pavilion. Okay. In that pavilion, India will showcase, Ministry of Tourism will showcase different wonders of India so as to attract tourists to India. Now, India's pavilion would focus more on wedding tourism. Okay. a chance for foreign nationals to see Indian weddings. Weddings are very attractive all over the world. So there is a chance to see Indian weddings. So it will promote that, India's pavilion. Then there is a special form of tourism that is used by business people. It's called meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibition, MICE tourism. And for people who are citizens of other countries but want to see India's festivals and festivities, or Mahakumbh Mela. So India will promote Mahakumbh Mela also, so that foreigners can see the biggest gathering in the world. Okay. A special mock mandapam would also be created, a mandap of a typical Indian marriage, so as to give a brief look at how Indian weddings function. Okay. So basically, we are trying to promote wedding tourism and Mahakumbh at this World Travel Mart. Okay. All right. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it has added value to your preparation. And please do not forget to spend 25 minutes more in revising this lecture. Where can you revise this lecture? From our PDF file shared on our Telegram channel. And this Telegram channel's link is provided in the comment section below this video. All right. On that note, I'll sign off. Thank you so much, everyone.